Whenever Hollywood runs out of ideas, which is every other Tuesday, they barf out a remake of something everyone's already seen. What probably comes to your mind when I say reboot or remake is the ridiculously long list of Disney reboots, or War of the Worlds 2025, but I'm not talking about those, forget those. I want to talk about the reboots you don't really hear people talk about as much. The reboots lost to time, if you will. A list of movies that I anticipate will be extremely dumb. My goal with this video is to find 2 movies that I can confidently say are the dumbest of the dumb. Dumb and Dumber and Dumb and Dumber 2. Because they made 2 of them. For most of these movies, I'm just going to do a little summary of my thoughts, but for the 2 that I declare the dumbest, I'm going to do a deep dive. And you'll never know when it is. It's a surprise. Anyways, here's the list. Fantastic Four. Dolittle. I don't know why I'm doing this with my voice, just roll with it. Point Break. Oldboy. Ghostbusters. The Pink Panther. The Mummy. The Thing. Planet of the Apes. And RoboCop. Anyways, welcome back to another episode of me torturing myself and then posting it on the internet for people to watch. Okay, first movie. So the funniest thing happened. I've seen this movie. I just didn't remember it, I guess. I don't think I finished it. I think I watched most of it. I do remember it being very boring. This movie came out 11 years ago, and I'm pretty young. It was 2015 when this came out, so I was probably like a wee lad. Yeah, I remember most of this, actually. It has that funny meme moment where it's like,
say that again?
But that's the only funny moment in the entire movie. The movie is pretty much just a different interpretation of their origin story. It focuses mainly on that, and it kind of turns it into body horror. I'm a big body horror guy. I like those kinds of movies. I think this movie did surprisingly good body horror, but everything else sucks. I think the first half of the movie is all right, because it mainly just focuses on there's these 4 people, and they get really messed up. This is actually a freakish accident that happens. But it seems like they forgot to make a movie after that. It doesn't really have an ending. The final boss fight is kind of just like the Thing like clobbers Dr. Doom. It's so dumb. I think it's kind of funny that it was so forgettable that I forgot I watched it. Legitimately, I saw the poster and I was like, oh, what's that? No clue what that is. What came to mind was the older Fantastic Four movies, which were good. I liked those movies. Maybe I'm just being nostalgic, but I remember them being funny. The reviews say they weren't as good as I remember, but I like the Fantastic Four and the Silver Surfer sequel. They were good movies to me. Again, I was a child. And then I saw the more recent Fantastic Four. It was all right. I don't know. I feel like this is an unpopular opinion. I didn't really like it, but also I just don't really like Marvel movies. I'm not a big Marvel guy. I watched so many of them in theaters back in the day. I liked the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and Ant-Man was funny, I guess, but I haven't seen that in a minute. I've kind of just been more drawn to DC recently. Yeah, this movie sucked. I can't say it was dumb, but it was more just boring than dumb. This isn't gonna be the movie that I'm like, oh yeah, this is the dumbest one, because it's not. It's just kind of like, well, that happened. Let's watch anything else now. All right, next movie. I'm done talking about this forever. I don't know why I said forever. It sounded so much more devastating than it actually was. Never again will I ever talk about Fantastic. Dolittle. I think it's Dolittle, right? Fun fact, I've already seen Dolittle. This is a movie that I was just gonna skip, so I think I will. I watched the Twawo. Not the hello princess voice coming out, sorry. I rewatched the trailer and I watched a couple of YouTube reviews to spike my memory, and I remembered that this movie is a nothing burger, and I've seen it 3 times because for some reason that like right when it came out, it was on Prime Video, and everyone in my family was like, you know, this movie, this is a good one, and we should watch it multiple. I think it was my siblings. They were like, yeah, this one's good, because when you're a little kid, you don't have taste. You just watch anything. You watch colors on a screen. I mean, sometimes when you're a kid, you do watch a movie that's like a good movie. Like, I freaking love Emperor's New Groove. I just got so sidetracked, my bad. This is what happens when I go off script. I'm not gonna rewatch Dolittle. Don't make me rewatch Dolittle. It's just noise. It's like every other kid's movie. It's something to put on in the background to get your kids to be quiet for an hour. Even watching the trailer, it's like a swashbuckling adventure. And then the actual movie is just Robert Downey Jr. saying, I'm Robert Downey Jr. I'm going on a quest. Hello, everyone. And the way he talks, you can barely make out what he's saying. This is not an over-exaggeration. This is actually how he talks. And it is objectively his worst performance that I have seen. I don't know why I keep saying objectively. It's not objective. It is my opinion. Anyways, we need to go on a quest. All right, so Point Break is a movie that came out in the 90s. It was good. I watched it. I liked it. It's like Keanu Reeves is like an undercover agent. There's all these criminals, and the criminals are surfers. So it's like a surfing movie mixed with a cop movie. It's pretty unique, but it's kind of the last movie that would ever need a reboot. And they also happened to make it worse. They remade the movie that didn't need to be remade and then made it less good. There isn't really any character growth. In the original movie, Keanu Reeves, like, he experiences like, oh, surfing's kind of cool, actually. I kind of like surfing. In this movie, there isn't really any of that. It's just kind of action scene after action scene without any stakes. And it's like, all right, why does this exist? I kind of turned off my brain while watching it. Like, I could imagine Point Break getting a sequel, even though that would be kind of stupid, but a remake? And it also wasn't successful. Like, nobody went to see it because when you hear they remade Point Break, it's not, whoa, it's why? For what purpose are you remaking the Keanu Reeves surfer cop movie? All right, moving on, what's next? Oldboy. So the original Oldboy is a Korean movie. It's very good if you haven't seen it. I'm gonna try not to spoil it. It's one of the movies that, like, the spoiler completely ruins the movie. It's crazy. It's a crazy movie. So apparently Spike Lee, the director of Do the Right Thing, he was in charge of a remake, an American remake of Oldboy. The Oldboy remake kind of completely misses the point of the original. So the original Oldboy is about a guy who gets abducted, he gets put in a cell for 15 years, and then he comes out like a super cool action hero. It's awesome. It's a great movie. There's some really crazy stuff that happens. The reboot takes everything that the original does and then just makes it worse. There's these things that happen in the original movie that they're there in the reboot, but they're not there for the same purpose. It's like it's there to be checked off a list. Everything's there, it's just more soulless now. Whenever there's like a scene in the original movie, it's there to serve multiple purposes. There's never like an exposition dump. And if there is, it doesn't feel like an exposition dump. It's also there to be entertaining. The Oldboy reboot doesn't go about scenes in like a creative way. It doesn't do anything different. It's just the same movie again, but everything that made the original good is not there. It's very much a dumbed down version of the source material. I might do a deep dive into this one. I just don't want to spoil the movie. But if you haven't seen the original Oldboy, please watch it. And if you haven't seen the reboot, please don't watch it. Welcome to day 2. I just finished watching... I'm a little tired. I just finished watching Ghostbusters 2016. So I avoided seeing this movie when it came out. I heard a lot about how it was really, really bad. And I'd seen the original movie and I liked it a lot. And I didn't really want to ruin my experience with the original movie. I can see why it got so much hate. The whole movie's just kind of cringe. This was in that era of Hollywood where quirky millennial culture was in the mainstream. I think it's okay to be cringe. I'm pretty cringe. But this movie is just like trying so hard to be funny and it's just not. There's a lot of nostalgia bait and also like 4 actors that were in The Office for some reason. Also, this movie is very oversaturated. Like the colors are not natural. I think it's fitting though, because there's so much product placement in this movie. So the oversaturated advertisement kind of look makes sense. I don't think this movie ruined the original for me. It was just kind of dumb. I do think it was kind of fun. It's the type of movie that you can enjoy when you're just turning your brain off and just laughing at it, just enjoying yourself. But the overall tone and sense of humor is just nothing like the original Ghostbusters. It's shockingly different. I feel like a lot of these movies are just studios forgetting who their audience is. Like, you have to remember why people liked the original movie in the first place. Sure, it's nostalgic, but a lot of the stuff they're nostalgia baiting in the new movie doesn't have anything to do with the original Ghostbusters. It's kind of just like, hey, remember the 80s? Remember that happened? Remember how cool the 80s was? I don't have much to say about this one. If you know the plot of the original Ghostbusters, which I probably should have done a plot summary at the beginning of this, it's a bunch of scientists and they become ghost hunters for people, and that's literally the new one. It's the same as the original, but again, and worse. Okay, thankfully this next movie looks like it's going to be actually funny. I specifically picked this movie to be a palate cleanser because a lot of these are like action epic kind of movies. I'm assuming this is going to be like French the Naked Gun, and if it is, heck yeah. After watching this movie, I did some research and found out there's like 100 billion Pink Panther movies, and this is like the third time they rebooted the franchise. The Pink Panther movies are about Inspector Clouseau. There's this diamond called the Pink Panther, that's why they're called the Pink Panther. But this one has to do with the coach of a soccer team getting killed, and his ring on his finger is the Pink Panther. I don't know about the original, I haven't seen it, but I think that would be a pretty funny topic for a video to watch all these movies. I honestly have no idea if Steve Martin is funny at all. But I think it's funny. I was kind of right that this movie is a lot like The Naked Gun. It makes for a pretty entertaining time, but honestly, I'd probably just prefer to watch The Naked Gun. There's like so many Naked Gun movies too, and those movies are just more jam-packed with gags. I feel like this one was a bit slower. I did have some chuckles here and there, but there were some jokes that just did not land for me. There were some that it was just like a really obvious sexual innuendo, and I was just like, okay, where's the joke? Yeah, I need to watch the rest of these. This will be... The Pink Panther cinematic universe is 9 movies. Hold up. I think they're doing another reboot. Hold up. They're making another one. They're making another one with Eddie Murphy. It's inspected to be Eddie Murphy. Anyways, next we're watching The Thing. So to be completely honest, I'm a little scared for this one. Also, I know it's not technically a reboot because it's like a prequel, but it has the same name and the same premise, just different characters. So I think it technically counts as a reboot. It's a reboot to me. I'm calling it a reboot. A little fun fact about me. John Carpenter's The Thing, 1982, is my favorite movie ever. As of like the last year and a half, it's subject to change, but currently it is my favorite movie, and it's part of the reason why I love 80s practical effects so much. I've tried to keep my knowledge of the film very minimal. All I know is it's a prequel, same sort of premise, and then instead of practical effects, it's mostly CG. So I'm a little like hesitant to watch it, but I'm going to because I feel like it's important for me to face my fears. If you haven't seen The Thing, 1982, it's about a bunch of scientists on a base in Antarctica who get infiltrated by a parasitic shape-shifting alien that can perfectly recreate human DNA and just look like a human. Without spoiling it, part of the reason why I think it's so good is because I like the whole mystery aspect of not really knowing who the thing is at any time. And I've rewatched the movie multiple times, and every time I notice something different, I'm like, oh, what if he's the thing? What if he's the thing? What if... oh, it could be him. And I'm about to watch the reboot prequel thing that has CG instead of practical effects. All right. Hello everybody, my name is Markiplier and welcome to day 3. I watched The Thing last night and I'm here to gather my thoughts. I kind of went down a bit of a rabbit hole on the behind the scenes of this movie. The plot of this movie is essentially the same as the original The Thing from 1982. There are some minor differences, but it's the same sort of concept where it's a bunch of scientists and then there's the thing. So apparently this movie was originally done entirely practically, but when they tested it for audiences, they said it was too much like an 80s horror movie. Huh? Well, the practical effects for this movie were really cool, and none of it made it into the final cut. Most of it's still there, it's just covered up by CGI. Which, like, if you're gonna do The Thing, isn't one of the main things, like, the practical effects? But overall, the movie was just a lot more cliche than the original The Thing. Instead of establishing different character dynamics and different, like, situations naturally, there were just a lot of tropes. I'm noticing it has similar problems to the Oldboy remake, where it's like, they didn't need to remake it. These are near perfect movies that they're turning into just okay movies, completely missing the point of the original. So yeah, I didn't really like this. I enjoyed it a little bit, because like, it still had that sci-fi horror stuff that I like, but otherwise it was just The Thing, but worse. Next up is Planet of the Apes. So I think I might have partially seen this movie or heard about it through like a YouTube video or something, because I'm very familiar with how it looks. All right, I gotta watch Planet of the Apes now. I'll see you in a number of time. I'll be back. So apparently this movie is directed by Tim Burton. I don't see it, frankly. This is probably the least Tim Burton movie. I do think the effects in this movie were pretty good, and I had a decent time watching it. That ending, though. If you've seen the movie, you know. It's the guy goes back to Earth, and then that statue of Abraham Lincoln is Ape-raham Lincoln. That was dumb. Sorry if it looks like I'm crying. I just had the biggest yawn. I'm so tired. I slept really bad last night. So that's why I can barely recall the movie I just watched. The dialogue in this movie was kind of a mess. The whole thing just feels kind of awkward. It honestly feels like it's kind of a waste of the surprisingly good makeup, because the characters, they look alright. They look like monkeys. This is a planet of apes. It just wasn't very good. Okay, next up is The Mummy. I think I might need a nap. No joke. It's like 1 p.m. on a Saturday and I'm so tired. What were we watching? The Mummy. I've seen the original The Mummy. I feel like the originals of a lot of these movies are movies I watched when I was like a little kid. All right, time to watch The Mummy. Great. So that wasn't anything like The Mummy. I don't understand why Tom Cruise is the lead in this. He's nothing like Brendan Fraser. He doesn't have the same sort of charisma. Some of the action scenes are alright, but I feel like this movie is just action scene, exposition, action scene, exposition, just back and forth. It's just constantly trying to have a story, but it's very loose. The Mummy in this one is a girl. She's got a lot more swag than the original Mummy. She's got more aura, if you will. But the original Mummy is such a classic, and it's like mainly just the one location. Again, why is it Tom Cruise? He's like the least Brendan Fraser-like person. He doesn't have the kind of charisma for this sort of character. Also, because it's Tom Cruise, the action scenes are a lot more Tom Cruise, where it's like, oh, I do my own stunts. I'm doing it all. Yeah, look at me. Whoa, there are some cool moments, but there's also a lot of boring moments. It's back and forth. It's like a generic action movie where it's like, oh, it's crazy. And then it's like, all right, here's the story now. We're not going to put them together like a good movie. I don't know if I mentioned this, but if I ever make a movie, I'd want it to be like a compact horror type of movie, like Evil Dead or The Thing or the original The Mummy. This kind of goes completely against the, all right, we're in one place and things are going crazy. This movie is all over the place. It does not know what it wants to be. The final movie that I'm watching is the RoboCop reboot, which I haven't seen the original. So technically I have 2 more movies to watch. All right, RoboCop time. Yippee! I spent my entire Saturday watching movies. So RoboCop, the original was good. I liked it a lot. I'm a big practical effects guy, so whenever I watch an 80s movie and it's got those insane over-the-top practical effects, it also was just really fun. It was just a fun time. For some reason, I've avoided watching it for so long, even though it's right up my alley. I like me a good gory action movie. I'd say that's one of the better gory action movies I've seen. There's one part where a guy gets shot in the nuts. It's not just like a funny, stupid movie too. It has like some really solid tension. Like you feel immersed by like there's something crazy happens and then you're like locked in on a scene like, all right, what's next? And then there's a RoboCop reboot, which is PG-13. So it's absolutely nothing like the original, which is incredibly gory. And that's kind of the audience of the original movie. And then they reboot it and it's nothing like that. It doesn't have the same like personality as the original. I'd say the RoboCop reboot is more similar to like the Dark Knight movies, like in how it feels. RoboCop is crazy. There's crazy stuff happens. That's not gonna happen in Batman because Batman's like more dark and gritty and brooding and stuff. It's more realistic. RoboCop is not realistic. That's part of the appeal. One positive, I did really like how it had some horror elements. There's one part where it shows RoboCop's body all stripped down and it's just nothing. All that's left is a head, some lungs, and like his hands, and it's quite disturbing. They have taken his entire body. But yeah, it's no longer over the top 80s action movie. It's missing that. Like, it doesn't have the charm of the original. It wasn't not entertaining, but watching both back to back, it's like, are these even made for the same people? Hello. So, originally this part of the video was going to be a deep dive into the Oldboy reboot, and then I changed my mind because I don't want to spoil the original movie. And also there's already a video from the YouTube channel YMS that says literally everything that I could say about the movie. So honestly, out of the rest of these movies, I only really found one that I was like, all right, this one, I really have a lot to say about it. And to be completely honest, I was getting really overwhelmed by having to do 2 deep dives. So the dumbest reboot movie that I've decided on out of all these is The Thing 2011. So the movie itself isn't that dumb. It's everything surrounding the movie that's dumb. Let me explain. It turns out The Thing 1982 isn't the original iteration of the whole concept of researchers in Antarctica finding a shape-shifting alien that can perfectly imitate a human. It's originally based on the science fiction novel Who Goes There, which was released in 1938 and written by John W. Campbell. In 1951, this novel was adapted into a film called The Thing from Another World. Then there was John Carpenter's version in 1982, followed by the Reboot prequel in 2011, which is what we're going to talk about. And also there's a video game released in 2002 that was recently remastered in 2024 that is called The Thing. I haven't played it. And I guess Among Us is very obviously inspired by The Thing. And the game Carrion. It's a cool game. I just don't know how to say the title. So that's pretty much the very basic history of the franchise, but what exactly is the problem with the reboot? There's a lot. So the most obvious thing is the CGI. One of the main reasons The Thing 1982 is so beloved is because of the over-the-top and still impressive practical effects. So while I was looking into this, it didn't take me long to realize that The Thing 2011 was originally shot entirely with practical effects. There is a ton of behind-the-scenes footage that shows some really complicated and very cool practical effects that were originally going to be used in the movie. And they were. They shot the whole movie initially with practical effects. But in the final version, none of it is there. When I first heard about this, it blew my mind. What in the world would possibly cause them to make a decision like this? So I did some more digging, and I found out it was primarily because of the test screenings and heavy studio interference that ultimately led to the change. The test screenings produced reactions that said it was too much like an 80s movie, which led to lots of CGI overlays and entire reshoots. Truthfully, I do not understand why studios are always trying to make movies as realistic as humanly possible. Most of the time when I go to a movie, I don't want it to be like real life, because real life is boring, just like this movie. I also want to point out how the CGI isn't necessarily bad, but it just feels off. I'm not quite sure how to explain it, but it doesn't really sell the scenes like the original does. It all feels fake. And the movie really suffers because of it. Besides the horrendously bad decision to replace all the sick practical effects with CGI, this movie's writing is also abysmal. Again, primarily because of studio interference. The studio disliked the slow boil pace of the film, which led to a lot of reworks and ultimately a huge drop in quality. I doubt the original script was a masterpiece, but judging by an interview I found with the lead screenwriter, it was definitely better. The final product is just all over the place. There are way too many characters, and it's impossible to get invested into any of them. In this movie, there's American characters and Norwegian characters. And the Norwegian characters barely get any lines or screen time because of how much the film chooses to focus on the American characters. Because the studio interference and control over this movie was so bad, it messed up the intended pacing for the film, which led to a good chunk of the characters and story development getting completely sidelined. And there's a ton of cliches throughout the movie, especially in the dialogue. Lots of, oh, this guy's good because he said nice thing, and oh, this guy's bad because he said mean thing. At the end of the day, this whole story about the production of this movie being a total nightmare is really just a classic case of big company poking their greedy little noses where they shouldn't be and completely missing the point of the art they're trying to adapt. Looking at the behind the scenes for this movie genuinely kind of depresses me because of all the hard work that was put into this by the team at Amalgamated Dynamics. That's the company that made the original practical effects. And studio interference led to it getting removed and being a worse movie. Anyways, that's my little deep dive into The Thing 2011. I didn't really want to do a frame-by-frame analysis because that would be really boring to watch. But hopefully the behind-the-scenes stuff and the way studio interference affected the final product of the movie was at least a little bit interesting. If you haven't seen the 1982 version, I highly recommend it. It is my favorite movie for a lot of reasons. And I don't really want to spoil the experience, so you should just watch it yourself and really lock in. Try to immerse yourself. It's just such a fun movie to get lost in. All right, back to the couch. Okay, I think that's everything. Thank you for watching. I have a bunch of other videos, and YouTube really likes it when you go watch another, because then it's like, ooh, I should show these videos to more people. Sorry this video took so long to make. I mean, obviously I haven't finished filming, I haven't finished editing, but yeah, I don't really have an upload schedule. I was going weekly for a bit there, and then I realized that I'm just too slow to make long videos every week. I just kind of have to accept that. All right. Toodles. Thanks for watching. See you later.